UFC Fight Night Allen versus Craig takes place this Saturday, and I'm going to break down the fights, starting with the prelim opener of Charles Johnson versus Rafael Estevam. Man, this card is kind of a stinker, isn't it? Not a lot of good fights on it. Anyways, I'm going to go with Rafael Estevam. He's undefeated, 27 years old, and Charles Johnson is just not good at all. Horrible haircut as well, the worst haircut I think in the history of the UFC. If I remember correctly, he's gotten so many fluke wins. It's kind of crazy. He got a absolutely gifted decision against Saragih, and he coming off of a loss to Cody Durden and a loss to Ode Osborne, which I think he actually should have won that fight, but it was such an awful fight. It doesn't really matter who won. Overall, not a good fighter at all. He doesn't have bad striking, but everything else about him is just horrible. As for Rafael Estevam, I mean, he's undefeated. He's 5 years younger, and I think he's looking to make a name for himself. So I'm gonna pick him to win. Moving on to Trey Ogden versus Nikolas Motta. Once again, two horrible fighters. Trey Ogden was kind of made a clown of by Ignacio Bahamondes. And Bahamondes isn't even that good. I know he's kind of sort of a prospect, but not really. And Trey Ogden did beat Daniel Zellhuber, but then before that he lost to Jordan Levitt. And if you're losing to Jordan Levitt, that's really not good. But he's on this card. He's fighting Chase Hooper on this card, which is going to be the battle of the soys. The two soyest fighters are going to collide in this card. So, anyways, Trey Ogden's horrible. Nikolas Motta, on the other hand, got absolutely destroyed with an elbow to the face by Manuel Torres. He's that guy that looks like Jerry Seinfeld. But Nikolas Motta was actually cracking him a couple times before he got knocked out. And he has a TKO over Cameron Van Camp. Then in the fight before that, he got KO by Jim Miller. So both of these guys are not good at all. But I think Trey Ogden is slightly less good than Nikolas Motta. So I'm going to pick Motta to win this. I'll say maybe second round TKO. Alright, moving on to a women MMA fight. I'm just going to pick the one with the bigger record, which is Lucie Pudilová. She's 14-8. She has more experience than Ailin Perez, so who knows, man? Just flip a coin. Alright, moving on to Jeka Saragih versus Lucas Alexander. Jeka Saragih got TKO'd by Anheliger. And Jubilee just got absolutely exposed by a, what was that guy's name? It was on the UFC 294 card against, I don't know, some horrible fighter. I can't remember his name, but I think he was on like a 3-fight losing streak. Oh, Mike Breeden. There it is. he got TKO'd by Mike Breeden. So if you're losing to a guy who lost to Mike Breeden, like, what are you doing in the UFC, man? Anyways, Lucas Alexander, on the other hand, has a win over Steven Peterson, and before that got submitted in the first round by Joanderson Brito. So I guess that's a slightly better record. So I'll pick Lucas Alexander to win. Alright, now on to actually kind of sort of interesting fight. Mick Parkin. Mick Parkin is actually a semi-talented heavyweight. He had a really solid performance against Jamal Pogues. Really good boxing fundamentals, good leg kicks, kept his hands up, didn't get tagged by anything too crazy except some jabs in the first round, but Parkin chewed up Pogues' legs and nullified him and just picked him apart. Didn't rush or get crazy and wild. He stayed composed, stayed calm, stayed patient. It was a pretty good performance for a heavyweight that's unranked. And as for his opponent, Caio Machado, never seen this guy fight before, no idea who he is. So I'm gonna pick Parkin, because Parkin actually had a really good performance. Anyways, moving on to Cesar Almeida versus Christian Leroy Duncan. Christian Leroy Duncan was kind of a prospect that was getting hyped up a bit by MMA Guru, and I can sort of see why. In his last fight against Armin Petrosian, he showed a lot of skills. It's just his fight IQ was like negative, and he somehow had negative fight IQ. He was doing all this like gay karate crap, which is fine, but you gotta mix it in with the fundamentals, which he just had no fundamentals at all. He like just kept throwing weird kicks and stuff, and it was really cringe to watch. And Meguru was raging horribly watching that fight. So hopefully he has learned from that and can apply his good athleticism, because you can see it in the way he steps and the way he bounces around. He's an athletic guy, so he definitely has the physicality to be a good fighter. And just can he put it together up here? As for his opponent, Cesar Almeida, never heard of him. So I'm gonna pick Christian Leroy Duncan to get it done. Alright, moving on to Chad Anheliger versus Jose Johnson. Again, another fight where both fighters are just Chad Anheliger is coming off of a decision loss to Alatin Gili. And then before that, he KO'd Jesse Strader, which, I mean, that's a whatever record again. Jose Johnson, on the other hand, I think he's that guy that got twisted by Damon Blackshear, I believe. Which I think that's his only UFC fight. So, it's kind of a tough one to call, because Damon Blackshear is actually really good. Arguably beat Mario, what's that guy's name? Mario Batista? Who did Damon? Yeah, Mario Batista. He stepped in for short notice for Cody Garbrandt when he was supposed to fight Mario Batista, and Damon Blackshear arguably could have won that decision on short notice against Mario Batista. And Mario Batista is a highly touted MMA or bantamweight prospect. So if you're losing to a guy like Damon Blackshear, that's not bad. It's not a horrible loss to have at all. And he's much younger than Chad Anheliger, much taller, and has a major reach advantage of like 7 inches. So I think all those factors together leads me to picking Jose Johnson to get a win. Alright, now on to the final prelim fight, Jonathan Pearce versus Joanderson Brito. Now this is actually kind of interesting because both of these guys actually have a decent record. Jonathan Pearce is on a pretty solid win streak right now. Although he did go to a decision against Darren Elkins, which, you know, if you're a highly talented prospect and you're going to a decision with Darren Elkins, I know Darren Elkins ain't bad. He showed great wrestling and scrambles against what's that guy? It was TJ Brown, the guy that Bryce Mitchell trains with. That was a great fight from Darren Elkins. So it's not. But again, if you're taking Darren Elkins to a decision when you're supposed to be this hyped up guy, it's kind of worrying. And Joanderson Brito, on the other hand, I mean, look what he did to Weston Wilson, which I know that guy's kind of like a wonder boy, soy boy wannabe kind of guy, but Joanderson Brito smoked that guy, smoked Lucas Alexander, and then smoked Andre Fili. And Andre Touchy Fili is pretty dang good. And then his last loss was back in January of 2022 against Bill Algeo. And Bill Algeo is a very, very good fighter. So, honestly, I think Joanderson Brito has better wins than Jonathan Pearce, and I think I'm gonna pick him to win. Actually, he's 28. He is a bit younger, a lot shorter, but he's Brazilian. He's poor, and he wants money. And you're going up against a poor Brazilian that's his only option in life is to fight. That's a tough guy to beat. So I'm going to pick Joanderson Brito to win over Jonathan Pearce. Alright, on to the main card of Jonny Parsons versus Uroš Medić. This has the potential to be a really good scrap, actually. Jonny Parsons is coming off of a really good, well, not really good, but a really fun fight against Danny Roberts, where he TKO'd him in round 2, right before the round ended with 3 seconds left, which, you know, Danny Roberts is really good, except his chin. His chin is absolutely horrible. So to do that against Danny Roberts, you know, it's a good win, but Danny Roberts is known to be very, very chinny. And Jonny Parsons in that fight, if you look at his build, he's a little bit of a chubster, all right? He's a little bit of a chubster. And Uroš Medić, man, he's a Serbian, first of all. I mean, that in itself is dangerous. Had a great scrap against Matthew Simmelsberger, where he got hurt in that fight, early in the fight. But he came back to win it with the TKO in round 3, which is really, really good. And then he has a TKO over Omar Morales, Omar Morales isn't good. But yeah, Uroš Medić, fun fighter. And so is Jonny Parsons as well. So it basically comes down to a chubster with a mullet or a Serbian. And I lean towards the Serbian. So I'm going to go with Uroš Medić. Now on to another women's MMA fight. I said last time that for women's MMA, I would always pick the uglier one. But they're both right about the same attractiveness level. And Luana Pinheiro, I mean, she is attractive. And Amanda Ribas is eh. So that's making me lean towards Amanda. But Amanda's coming off of a TKO loss to Maycee Barber, which is horrible. Because Maycee Barber, I mean, she's kind of a prospect, but is she really, though? I mean, are there even prospects in women's MMA? But on the other hand, Luana Pinheiro kind of got gifted a decision against Michelle Waterson-Gomez. And Michelle Waterson-Gomez just ain't got it anymore. And if you're making it that close with her, it's not good either. But it is a win, and she's coming off of a win against a ranked opponent. Because, I mean, Michelle Waterson-Gomez, although she's not good anymore, at one point she was. And to have that, a win over someone like her, does bring in some momentum. And meanwhile, Ribas is coming off of a TKO loss to Maycee Barber, so that makes me lean towards Pinheiro, which I guess I'm going to pick, even though she is more attractive, which makes me worried, but we'll see. Anyway, moving on to Peyton Talbot versus Nick Aguirre. Peyton Talbot is coming off of a Dana White Contender Series win, which is pretty good. And then Nick Aguirre got a rather, I can't remember his fight against Dan Argueta. He lost it. I think it was rather dominant for Dan Argueta, which I thought Dan Argueta was good, though he just kind of got exposed in his last fight. But yeah, it's a tough fight to predict, but Peyton Talbot, he's coming off of a Dana White Contender Series win. He's undefeated. Let's see their stats. He's only 25, which isn't a lot of experience to have, and Nick Aguirre has a 3.5 reach advantage. So, and it's in the bantamweight division. And most UFC bantamweights are pretty solid. So this might be too much of a step up for Peyton Talbot. So I think, well, most people on the Dana White Contender Series are already pretty good. So he's coming off of momentum. He's undefeated with 6 fights. And Nick's coming off a loss, so I guess I'll just go Peyton Talbot. And then, the Battle of the Soys, Chase Hooper versus Jordan Levitt. The sheer soyness of both of them. I mean, the lack of testosterone. I don't know. It's kind of a difficult one to predict, but because they're both coming off of solid wins. Jordan Levitt, I think he got a a slam finish over Victor Martinez in his last fight. And then Paddy Pimblett subbed him in round 2 though, which, again, Paddy Pimblett's horrible, so if you're losing to him, not a good sign. But he is coming off of a great win, and so is Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper looked pretty dang good against Nick Fiore, which Nick Fiore is not good at all, really. So it's not really that great of a win to have. But if a guy like Paddy Pimblett can beat Jordan Leavitt, I think a guy like Chase Hooper can as well, because Chase Hooper arguably has similar jiu-jitsu levels to Paddy. And I think he's been taking some time to work on his striking, because I mean he did show pretty decent striking against his last fight. So I think I'm gonna have to go Chase Hooper here. Jordan Leavitt is more gay, more feminine than Chase Hooper, and Chase Hooper looks like oh, what's that guy? I can't believe I just forgot his name. That awesome kickboxer guy. What is that awesome kickboxer guy that looks like just if Chase Hooper had testosterone? I can't believe I just forgot his name. I'll think of it as soon as this video's over, but you know who I'm talking about. So, yeah, I think Chase Hooper's going to get the victory over Jordan Leavitt, probably with a submission, I'll say. Now on to the co-main event of Michael Morales versus Jake Matthews. Now this is a kind of a hard fight to predict, because Michael Morales has a lot of power and Jake Matthews is a bit chinny. But Jake Matthews has a lot more skill and experience than Michael Morales, because Michael Morales is not that... he's not put together well as a fighter, which is partly because he's so young. He's only 24. But if you look at his fights in the UFC, you got Max Griffin, which is a decision win over. Round 3 TKO over Adam Fugit, which he lost the second round, I believe. If I remember that fight correctly. And then a round TKO over Trevin Giles, which is an okay win. But if you look at Jake Matthews is a solid all-around fighter. He's coming off of a round 2 submission win over Darius Flowers. Lost to Matthew Semelsberger, which I know Matthew Semelsberger isn't good, but Matthew Semelsberger has so much power, and Jake Matthews, every time he got cracked and dropped bad, he was able to fight through it and then win the rest of the round in terms of the duration of the round. He didn't win any. He lost all 3 rounds because he got dropped in all 3 rounds. But after he got dropped, he won the rest of the round, which is really impressive. So, if he can survive Semelsberger's punches, I think he should be able to survive Michael Morales' punches. At least I'm pretty confident in that. But Morales is so much taller and has a 6-inch reach advantage. It's going to be tricky for Matthews to get around that. But Matthews has decent grappling. He's 5 years older. He's 29. He has more experience. So I think I'm going to predict him to maybe get, I'm going to say round 2 submission over Michael Morales. Now on to the main event of Brendan Allen versus Paul Craig. mean, it's a middleweight versus a former light heavyweight, which makes me worry about the middleweight curse because middleweights are so bad. But I think Paul Craig is just, first of all, he's old. He's 35. That's not good. He's coming off of a good win over well, they're both coming off of a win over Andre Muniz. Well, no, Allen won his last fight against Bruno Silva, I think. But Paul Craig had a good win over Andre Muniz. Andre Muniz is solid, right? He's not horrible. But the fight before that, he got absolutely destroyed by Johnny Walker. Lost to Volkan Ozdemir. But then submitted. Paul Craig's record just doesn't make sense. Submission win over Nikita Krylov. Submission, well, I guess it was a TKO over Jamal Hill. And then a submission win over Anheliger. Somewhere in here. When the hell did that happen? Whatever. But he's beaten Anheliger, Jamal Hill, and Nikita Krylov. 3 amazing fighters in the light heavyweight division. But he's also lost to horrible fighters. He's kind of like Michael Johnson. Kind of reminds me of that. This record, at least. But Brendan Allen, he's been putting together a good streak of fights. Got a round 1 submission over Bruno Silva. Before that, got a round 3 submission over Andre Muniz. Round 1 submission over Krzysztof Jotko. A decision over Jeka Malkoun. Round 2 submission over Sam Alvey. And then before that, you know, he had his loss to Chris Curtis and two other wins. And then he got defeated, of course, by Sean Strickland. Which he's called out both of those guys after his win over Andre Muniz. He called both of them out, which is, I think, shows his level of confidence in his game and how he's improved. He's 27, so he's had so much time to keep improving. And Paul Craig, I just don't think is improving. He's chinny. He's great off of his back. He's got a great guard, but Allen has great grappling as well. And I think it's going to come down to the stand-up, because Paul Craig isn't going to be able to take Allen down. Craig just isn't really a wrestler. And I think it's going to come down to the difference in the striking. Paul Craig just can't strike. And Brendan Allen's okay at striking. So, yeah, I think Allen's probably going to get maybe like a round 2 or 3 TKO over Paul Craig. But yeah, that's my predictions for UFC Fight Night. Allen versus Craig. This card's whatever. It's like a filler episode in the anime. It's just whatever. They got to put something in between this drought, I guess you could say. Even though we have Dariush versus Saragih in 2 weeks, which is gonna be awesome. And then the Shanghai card, which I heard got canceled, which is kind of weird. But then we have UFC 296, and that's absolutely amazing. So, looking forward to that. But in the meantime, we gotta watch this stuff. So, that's it. See ya.